Welcome back to A Slice of News, where I cut you off a slice of news. Well, according to the Epstein Files Transparency Act that Congress recently passed, today, December 19th, was supposed to be Epstein File Release Day, when all the files that didn't jeopardize the current investigation or harm national security or reveal identifying information about the Epstein victims, all of it was supposed to come out under a penalty of legal action. And it's definitely looking like that's not going to happen. If I had the ability to be surprised less than zero, that's how much surprise I would have at this. What's Pam Bondi going to do? Arrest herself? Donald Trump and his administration have shown time and time again that laws do not matter to them. They fear no consequence. And like most criminals, they feel no desire to follow the law if they know that there is no repercussions for not doing so. And seemingly every turn of the Donald Trump administration dares Democrats to do anything about it. They say, oh, yeah, I broke the law. What are you going to do? And the answer every single time seems to be mad about it, but not actually do anything, which is one of the reasons Democrats are seen as a weak party, because they talk a lot, but when it comes to action, they are noticeably lacking. But to a certain degree, it's not even really their fault. Republicans control every facet, from the legislative to the judicial, obviously the executive branch. In a lot of ways, Democrats' hands are tied. They don't have a lot of power in government, so they don't really have the ability to do all that much. Okay, the Trump people break the law, so they're going to take them to court. Well, either the case is seen by a Trump sympathetic judge, like the one he put on the bench in the first place, who will say, yeah, they broke the law, but it's okay. Or one that actually follows the law and says, yes, that's not right, rules against them, and then the judgment that said they did something wrong and have to be punished gets appealed, maybe even gets sent up to the highest court, the Supreme Court. The problem there, of course, is the conservative majority court has basically said, yeah, Donald Trump can do whatever he wants. We really don't want to limit his power at all. And then that's where that would end. We have a lawless president and a lawless administration living in a world where those who are supposed to stop them either are on their side and refuse to, or are too weak and outnumbered by those who are to be able to effectively administer real justice. And the truth is, whatever files were going to be released today, on Epstein file release day, were going to be so heavily redacted and altered as to be basically useless. Even though, in the words of Democratic Representative Ro Khanna, anyone who tampers with the documents or conceals documents or engages in excessive redaction will be prosecuted because of obstruction of justice. We will prosecute individuals regardless of whether they're the Attorney General or a career or political appointee. We need full transparency and justice for the survivors. Any person who attempts to conceal or scrub the files will be subject to prosecution under the law. And I have to give him credit. That sounds like big talk. That sounds like strong. It's like, look, you better put out those files in a way that people can actually tell what they say, because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. But it all comes down to a matter of enforcement. You can't threaten somebody with prosecution, with legal action, with obstruction of justice, if there's no way to actually enforce it. The Justice Department isn't going to come after themselves. Part of the issue here is that the law, as written, didn't actually specify any penalty if the Department of Justice didn't release the files on time. So naturally, they had no motivation to not drag their heels and not release the files when they were supposed to by law. And even if they did figure out how to punish them for doing the thing that they were told not to do, it would likely take so long, it would be up to the next administration to do it. And at that point, any damage would long since have been done. Gets back to what I said before. If you don't fear the consequence of an action, there's no motivation not to commit it. Ro Khanna and his fellow Democrats are basically like a parent telling a child, oh, I'm going to punish you. When I figure out how to punish you, I'm going to punish you. Maybe not right now, but in a couple years, you're gonna get it. While all the while, the child is writing all over the walls and screaming all over the house. Attorney General Pam Bondi should be arrested for contempt of Congress, but she's not going to be, and hoping she would be is really just wishful thinking. And not wanting to release the Epstein files that they are legally required to do, at the very least, makes sense. Their boss, President Donald Trump, is so prominent and so frequently featured in those files. If they tried to redact every mention of his name, every single page would practically be solid black. Even though Democrats are saying that the administration would get in trouble if they were discovered having scrubbed or excessively redacted these files, you know that's exactly what they've done. And failing to meet the December 19th deadline is likely because the task was so great that they just ran out of time to effectively sanitize the files that were said to be released before time was up. They are undoubtedly protecting this criminal president, and in doing so perpetrating one of the greatest political cover-ups in modern history. But if nobody can do anything about it and bring anybody to be punished for it, it really almost doesn't matter. They can be out in the open about what they're covering up and who they're covering it up for. Without consequence, they have nothing to fear. And even if there were going to be, Speaker Mike Johnson made sure to recess Congress a day early for their holiday break to make sure that there wouldn't be. I guess not right away anyway. So the question on everyone's mind right after, did anyone actually think they were going to do this? It's probably, okay, well now what? And for obvious reasons, it's a very good question, and also one that cannot be answered in the moment. One thing I think most can agree on, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or Republican, is that the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell deserve justice for what they suffered. And all these delays and all these redactions and all these breaking of laws are not really getting them any closer to getting it. In some ways, it's like hoping the police are going to come and punish those who did crimes against you, except the chief of police was one of the criminals. There's not much chance that they're going to come after their own boss, so there's not much chance that you're going to get your justice. The major law enforcement agencies under Trump, the Department of Justice, FBI, all of that, are dragging their heels on taking these Epstein files as seriously as they should, because they don't want to. And one could even argue have a vested interest not doing so, since they know that if they went with the full force and actually went after those named in the Epstein files, not only would that involve a lot of prominent, powerful people, that it would involve their boss, President Donald Trump. He would be very mad at them, and he would likely fire them and put someone in their place who would never do that. So simply out of self-preservation, they dare not go against their big orange boss. As has come up many times throughout many of my episodes, I've established that the administration's greatest struggle is with accountability, or their lack of it. Donald Trump built a life where he didn't have to be accountable for anything and could get away with just about anything he could possibly want to, and brought that into the presidency and into government, where he can break laws and ignore Congress as much as he wants because no one's going to do anything about it. They can't. He fears no authority over him because he's been shown that there are no authorities over him. As the President of the United States, who has the Supreme Court basically in his pocket, nobody can say no to him when it really matters. This is a man who had military actions done under his watch that, if we had been at war at the time, would have unequivocally be considered war crimes. He does not fear retribution, nor does anyone else high up in his administration either. So the question still stands. If we have an administration who doesn't really believe that the law applies to them, and there's seemingly no one with the power to prove them otherwise, as a nation, what do we do now? Some are saying, well, this is the moment we've been waiting for. This is when we rise up en masse and force the consequences. If they want to act like the kings and aristocracy of late 18th century France, then fine, let's treat them like it and execute them by guillotine in the public square. And while head chopping does admittedly seem very tempting at times, it obviously is not the solution in this case. The reality is, much as it pains me to say, we have to just trust the system to work as intended, even though it feels as if that system is long since broken and does not work as intended. It is true that the Epstein transparency law did not stipulate a particular punishment for non-compliance, but it did not say there would be no punishment for non-compliance, which would be weird in and of itself if a law said, hey, if you break this law, there's no punishment, nothing will happen to you. The law said Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice have to release these Epstein files on or before December 19th, and they have not done so. Therefore, they have broken the law. The Department of Justice has broken the law. And now Epstein's victims and all of us have to wait for them to be punished for having done so. For something called the Department of Justice, they sure don't seem very interested in seeking justice if it doesn't convene their great leader. And in the last year, it seems to have become more like the Department of Injustice. So while the wheels of real justice move slowly, you can only hope they are turning as fast as they can, and that eventually right will prevail. Those who deserve justice will get justice, and those who deserve to be brought to justice are brought to justice. Because that's the America we should all want to live in. Alright guys, that'll be it for this episode of A Slice of News. I've been your host, Mr. Slice, and until next time when I cut you off another slice of news.